Hey there, if you're scrolling through endless range hood options and feeling a little nervous about dropping a solid chunk of cash on something that might just sit there collecting dust, I get it. You've probably spent a few minutes wondering whether a fancy-looking 44-inch hood will actually keep your kitchen air clear, or if you'll end up with a noisy, expensive garnish on the ceiling that does little more than look good. I've been in that exact spot before, and I did a bit of digging reading the specs, watching a handful of installation videos, and skimming the handful of buyer comments that actually exist for this unit. So let's break down whether the FORNO Arezzo 44-inch built-in ceiling range hood is the right fit for you. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the biggest thing that makes the Arezzo stand out is its double motor design, promising 1200 CFM of airflow. In a kitchen where you're tossing a lot of high-heat cooking, that kind of volume can be a lifesaver. Imagine a weekend brunch where you're searing a batch of bacon, sautéing peppers, and simmering a sauce all at once. With a single motor hood, you might notice the lingering smell of bacon for hours after you've finished. The dual motors on the Arezzo aim to move the air fast enough that the steam and grease are captured before they settle onto your cabinets. In practice, that means you'll probably spend less time wiping down the backsplash and more time enjoying your meal. Now, let's talk about installation, because any ceiling-mounted hood is a bit of a commitment. The Arezzo is a recessed soffit model, which means you have to carve a space into your ceiling or have it built into a dropped soffit during a remodel. If you're a DIY enthusiast who's comfortable drilling through drywall, pulling electrical lines, and working with a mounting bracket, the hood's installation guide is fairly straightforward. The unit weighs a decent amount, so you'll need at least 2 people to lift it into place safely. On the flip side, if you're renting or you don't want to open up your ceiling, this isn't the kind of hood you'll want to pick. One practical strength that shows up in real-world use is the remote control. Most built-in hoods require you to climb a ladder or stretch to a switch on the wall, which can be awkward when you're already juggling a hot pan. The Arezzo's remote lets you toggle fan speed, turn the lights on, and even set a timer from across the kitchen. That's a small convenience, but it does add up when you're cooking in a cramped space. The remote is battery-powered, so you'll have to replace them every few months, but that's a minor trade-off for the hands-free control. Speaking of fan speed, the double motor system gives you 2 main settings, a high-speed blast and a lower, quieter mode for everyday cooking. In practice, the high speed can really whisk away a lot of steam, but you'll notice a noticeable uptick in noise. Think of a vacuum cleaner on full power. If you have an open-plan layout where the kitchen flows into the living area, that extra noise could become a distraction. The lower speed is relatively quiet, but it may not be enough for heavy-duty frying or wok cooking. So, the hood works well for medium-intensity meals but may fall short if you're planning to do a lot of high-heat, high-smoke cooking on a regular basis. Another point that often slips past the spec sheet is the heat-resistant perimetric capture design. The Arezzo uses a circular capture zone that sits flush against the cooking surface, aiming to pull the plume of steam right as it rises. For a typical stovetop that's centered under the hood, this works pretty well. However, if you have burners that sit off to the side or a large range that spills over the edges, the capture zone may miss part of the plume, leaving some lingering odor. In homes where the cooktop is perfectly aligned, you'll likely see the benefit. If you have a more irregular arrangement, you might still need to run the fan a bit longer after cooking to get the air clear. Now, let's talk value. The Arezzo sits in a mid to high price bracket for 44-inch ceiling hoods. You're paying for the double motor, stainless steel finish, and remote control. If you compare it to a single-motor 48-inch model that costs a bit less, the main differentiator is the airflow capacity. In a small to medium kitchen, say, under 150 SQFT, the extra CFM can actually make a noticeable difference. In a larger space, you might need a more powerful system or multiple units to achieve the same level of clearance. So, the value proposition is strongest when the kitchen size matches the hood's coverage area. Who should definitely consider the Arezzo? If you love cooking big meals, entertain regularly, and have the ceiling space to accommodate a recessed unit, this hood can be a game changer. It's also a solid pick if you already have a dropped soffit or are planning a remodel where